me turn my talk. Here we go. How he said he living life as a gringo. Where you question where you fit in every time you mingle. They say you do this with not enough that. My rapping is really bad. This life as a gringo.
Yes, hello and welcome to another episode of Life as a Gringo. I am Dramos, of course. And man, first and foremost, addressing the elephant in the room. I sound crazy right now probably because I'm sick as hell. I just got back from being on the road, doing shows in Puerto Rico and Miami. I was on the road for about 2 weeks. Amazing experience. Thank you, everybody I met out there. And all the shows I got to play were amazing. But the lack of sleep and care for my body definitely took a toll on me. And I woke up yesterday just feeling like absolute death. So I sound crazy. I apologize. With that said, it's Financial Literacy Month. April is Financial Literacy Month. So the Tuesday episodes for this month will all be centered around financial literacy related topics. Today, I'm actually really excited to take a bit of a different angle than what we've done in the past. We're actually going to talk a bit about mental health and finances and the effect that our finances or lack thereof can have on our mental health. Maybe certain practices that we have even in times where we're, doing well and we're successful, but old trauma from our upbringing that doesn't allow us to enjoy our wins the way that we should. So a lot of different things we're going to get into. I'm going to have an amazing guest on joining us. He's the creative director of Mente, which is this incredible program and brand that is sort of doing some out-of-the-box thinking when it comes to addressing mental health in the Latin community. I'll let him describe that and get into more of what they're doing, but I'm really excited for this episode, excited to have this conversation around finances and mental health. I think it's incredibly important and one that I think we don't speak about quite enough. So, with that said, let's get into it via our Mi Gente segment. Mi Gente! My guest today is a stand-up comedian and creative director of Mente World, Luis Galilei. How you feeling, my bro?
What's up? I'm feeling good.
Man, we out here. We were just talking about this off mic. We both got the Hector Lavoe in the background, so great minds think alike out here.
Yeah, no. Hector. My mom used to play Hector while I was in her belly. She would put headphones over it, and I would listen to Hector. Yeah.
That's legendary, man. So I wanna get to a few things with you today. I think obviously your much of your work right now at Mente World is around mental health. So let's kind of start there with the brand that is Mente World and what that is exactly for anybody who's not familiar, kind of in your own words.
Yeah. Mente World is a brand that is Latino led. So the team that operates it is Latino, but we are putting on experiences and creating what we call healing content that is meant to be consumed by all. Essentially, what the start of it all was two best friends, our co-founders, Victor and Dan. They were best friends since high school in Dallas, and they've both become, professionals, graduated from good universities, but they still found that mental health was sort of like a tough thing to access for them to get appropriate mental health. So that's sort of where the kernel of Mente was born, where now we want to kind of expand the definition of how people feel like they can address their mental health. A lot of people feel like it's just therapy, and therapy is not accessible for everyone because it's expensive. And we are sort of bringing in so many different aspects of life, entertainment, art, and community to show people that you can address your mental health in many different ways. And how we do that is, creating content which is what we call healing, which is content that has an angle that sort of shines the light on the positives or negatives that it has on your mental health. And then experiences like these comedy shows that we've been throwing in LA. We have one in Miami coming up where we use a sort of crowd work, group therapy sort of approach, and people believe it or not, get vulnerable and they reveal things that they're going through after an hour of comedy. So like we've seen that that hour of comedy brings their barriers down and they're willing to get more vulnerable since all the endorphins are up. And we
Sure.
solve problems as a community. So that in a nutshell is what we're doing now. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I love that, bro. I think you touched on a couple of things. Specifically, it's Financial Literacy Month, but I think a big sort of I don't know. I think for me, when I think about a lot of mental health issues I've struggled with, or friends of mine, finances are always sort of at the root of a lot of it. Of so many different things. I love how you touched on the idea of therapy almost being feeling inaccessible for many people. I know for me, what held me back from getting therapy for the longest time was that I couldn't afford it on my own. So I had to go through my mom's insurance, but I felt weird talking to them about it, right? So I put it off for a long time. And I think it's really interesting that you're sort of creating these spaces outside of the traditional norms of therapy and ones that are far more accessible financially. So at least that's not an excuse for someone not to address their mental health.
Yeah. I mean, one of the approaches that we have is one that's rooted in our sort of grassroots organizing background,
Mm,
which is something that I learned on the streets, which was how can we have anyone open up about their mental health or listen to sort of, policy type stuff back when I was organizing without addressing a basic need of theirs first.
mm,
So this sort of goes back to like how indigenous cultures used to meet up, right? They would bring an offering before any sort of discussion around, joining or conflict was had.
yeah,
And that's what we do with Mente. So we've been able to hold basic need giveaway days, and at our comedy shows, we give away stuff. So people feel like they're being taken care of because I mean, how could you even really expect to talk about your mental health when you have bills due, when you know
right,
that the gas is low, when you know that you might not have enough for laundry? So we've been giving out like laundry cards, gas cards, grocery cards. So yeah, it's very big. It's a very big thing because people think like, mental health should be at the number one. It should be your number one priority, which is
mm,
true.
sure,
But in the type of capitalistic society that we live in and how the American dream,
sure,
functions, it's gonna be like, no, this mental health is not a priority of mine because I have to provide, or I have to, gain more status, or I have to get the promotion. So
hmm,
we know that there are a lot of people that just, I mean, not a lot of people have $200, $100 twice a month. Like once a month is something, but we need to talk more. So if you
yeah,
want to do it and you want to feel that progress, you need like two, $300, $400 a month. That's half of people's rent.
yeah.
That's a lot of money for certain people. So we want to show them that there are different ways that can be free, that can be on your own personal time, where you can address your mental health.
Yeah, yeah, I think and it's interesting. It's almost like I think our parents' generation, because they struggled so much financially, many of them, it's almost like a privilege to address your mental health, kind of what you're speaking to, right? It's like this, as much of a priority as it needs to be, and as much as you really can't do anything if your mental health is not in order. It's also a privilege to be able to address your mental health, right? To take the time, the money, and resources needed to actually attack that. It's so funny. I think when I think about the older generation, kind of a lot of their reactions around the ideas of therapy or mental health or things like that, and they're immediately sort of pushed in the direction of saying like, do you know how hard we had to struggle? What do you have to struggle about, essentially, right? And it's sort of so funny how, to your point, in this capitalistic society, that our need for money, which we all need it, oftentimes supersedes what's best for us at the end of the day.
Yeah, and we've become such a hardworking culture, especially
Mm,
that, Latinos in the US. This is the only place we're referred to as Latinos. Everywhere else, we're Puertorriqueños, Peruanos.
right.
So here we've been like really put in this category of hard working. And I like that, but I also don't love that because
Mm,
it becomes a part of, and you learn this as you go through a therapeutic sort of journey, but it becomes a part of your personality. So if
right.
you're not struggling if you're not grinding, it's almost like life isn't truly happening the way it should be.
Mm,
Um, which is something that I've personally had to like sort of like divorce because
mm-hmm.
I will be doing well and I need to acknowledge myself, but because that sort of like acknowledgement is supposed to come in, I'll seek out struggle. I'll seek
Right.
out like, you know, so many men in this world that like, especially Latinos, that like almost their personality is having financial problems.
Right. Right.
Like every time you say, "Yo, what up? How you doing?" Oh, you know, man, just grinding, bro. You know, the rent's
Right.
due. Need to get to this money. You know,
Right.
I mean, I still say that. Let's get to this money, but I mean, like, let's get to these. I don't know, spiritual goals. uh,
Right.
but and it's this culture of pure grind. So anything that doesn't associate with being productive is like negative.
Mm,
And addressing your mental health, especially deep traumas or small things that are blocking you, are gonna make you a little less productive before you
right.
before you can become even more productive, but you know, in a controlled way. So I completely agree with you. Like Latinos, I think the machismo has a big part of it. You
Right.
know, el hombre siempre tiene que trabajar, you know, you always gotta
Yeah.
grind. You always you don't you have to grind in silence, you know?
Right.
Like you can't say nothing. And that's what we talk about in our shows. We actually had someone talk about how they had planned to work overtime. And this was an audience member sharing as we were doing our sort of crowd work group therapy thing.
Yeah.
And this couple, they had planned a spring break for their kids, and it was supposed to be a whole week long, and he agreed to it. But in his mind, he knew that they had a wedding coming up later after that. So he said to himself, I'm going to work this weekend overtime so I can make more money for that. But didn't say anything to his partner. So
Mm,
his partner is they're planning things with the kids for a whole week of activities. And then he goes the week before, hey, I'm not going to be able to make the ones on the weekend. And she explodes, right? Because she's like,
yeah.
what happened? We were doing all this stuff. We agreed to this. And in his mind, he's like, yo, my intent is to make my family happier with the work and everything. But now there's a huge miscommunication. You get in an argument, both people have good intents. And because we're grinding in silence and not communicating, the machismo sort of creates this huge problem, this huge weight when you could have just communicated up top. And financial stuff is one of the biggest reasons why people get in conflict with each other,
Mhm.
especially like within the household. So there's a huge need to like continue to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even to that point, the sort of the way we idolize the sort of grind lifestyle, right? And this idea of always doing something right, and to your point, the idea of productivity and all these different things. um it almost, even when you end up getting into a position where you might be financially secure, it's hard to shed that mindset, and you begin to, sort of sacrifice the freedoms that you've earned through your work because you can't get out of the obsession with the grind. You can't get out of the mentality of always thinking that like the shoe is about to drop type of thing, right? And that's what I've sort of struggled with a lot, is I carry that around even when times are good. I'm still operating from a place of like, concern that like something is about to, the rug is about to be pulled from under me.
Right.
Um, and I think that's also a topic of conversation that so many people, we don't have really, right? The idea that like even when you do find success, many people find it hard to shed that sort of fear of losing it all.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. There's always been this expectation for people to almost not live their wins.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you live your win, then there's a potential other one that you're not going for. Or
Right.
if you live your win, you're resting and you shouldn't rest. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think and we run away from our problems a lot of the time with work. Like
Yep.
it's funny at our shows as well. Like I'll do a segment where I ask people what they do for their mental health,
Yeah.
and you'd be surprised how many people say work.
Mm.
And like work, like your job is not for your mental health. Like that is your
Right.
occupation. That's what brings you money, and that's what distracts you. So
Mm.
it is a distraction, and you might find joy in certain things, but you need to be doing other things, living your wins, finding out what your inner child likes to do. Like, and like you were saying before, like Latinos, they tend to feel, especially older generations, they tend to feel like therapy is something that's against them, right? It's,
Mm,
oh, it's going to make you hate your mom or your dad. But that's the problem with like not being able to criticize our parents. Like it's not like I
right,
don't love you. Like start with that. Mom, I love you and you've done everything for me. I just want to talk about this thing that had an effect
right,
on me, right? It doesn't mean that I'm ungrateful. It doesn't mean that I'm ungrateful that you like swam here from Venezuela. Like I don't
right.
I trust me. Like I think that's one of the things too. Like there's this expectation for us to suffer as much as
Hmm.
they did, but it's like you did that for us to have a better life. Like
Hmm.
you did that for me. I went to college, I learned about different things, and now I have this opinion that the world shouldn't function the way it should. Doesn't mean I hate you. It doesn't mean
Right.
I hate where we came from. I just learned how like we could all be a bit happier.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. I think one of the things that sort of flipped the switch for me, a few years ago was sort of adapting and accepting the idea that me taking time off for myself would actually lead to more productivity down the road, right? So that sort of switch in my mind being flipped, where I can then look at time off as sort of and even that in itself, the fact that I have to kind of trick myself into thinking it's something for productivity speaks, I think, volumes. But understanding that me taking time off, having time to myself, clearing my mind, and sort of not working will yield better results for my work down the road. And I think that sort of adaptation has helped me out so much with not feeling guilty when I'm
Mhm.
taking a day for myself, or I'm not, where I said I was going to take a day off and I'm not going to answer emails. I don't have to feel guilty about that.
Yeah, there's so many examples now, especially how America has sort of blossomed into a place where you could create a career out of anything now with
Sure.
social media. That like there is still, I feel like a part of us, especially as gringos,
Yeah.
that like feels very misunderstood by our parents in what we
Hmm.
do. So, but we always compare it back to what they consider is a job. So
Right.
like, if you're doing something that's not necessarily understood as a job and a grind and a working style man or woman, then you almost feel like you need to prove to them that this thing is real. So
Hmm.
then now we're still working towards our parents' expectations. So you will feel guilty that you're taking a break from your media job
Right.
because they never sort of like not like what? Like you talk for a month, like
Right.
are
Right.
you on the
Right.
radio? Yeah, are you on
Yeah.
like 105? I don't hear you.
Yeah.
So they don't necessarily see it as like totally legit, right? Like it took a
Right.
really long time for my family to like to address my art as my
Yeah.
job. It was always like because I
Right.
always had another job, and they were like, "Oh, how's that doing? That's good. Okay, now
Right.
how's the little extra stuff doing?" I'm like,
Sure.
"No, the extra is the main,
Right.
and the main is the extra." So yeah,
Yeah, they don't because it doesn't look like the hard work they did, they don't take it seriously almost.
yeah.
And that could be incredibly frustrating. I've definitely got through that as well. Um I think also I'd seen kind of some of the work that you guys had done through your website and sort of talking about the idea of fighting loneliness, right? And
Yeah.
and that sort of being this unspoken epidemic that I think faces that so many young people face, particularly ironically in an age where we are so hyper connected, we're also I think so much more disconnected in the realest sense than ever. I
hmm
think, and I think speaking specifically to financially, there's nothing lonelier than being the one like broke friend in the group. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Who can't do the things that everybody else is doing, and like especially we have a culture where we don't speak about money, right? In general, but on top of that, if you're the one friend struggling with money and you can't do all the things that your peers are doing, that is incredibly isolating and lonely, and can wreak havoc on your mental health and your own self worth. To a degree.
Yeah, I mean, self-worth is so tied to finances in today's day,
Yeah.
but I would also argue, right, specifically for the Latino male.
Yeah.
Like we have been trained. I mean, I grew up without a father.
Mm.
And in I remember I was really little And one of my earliest memories of my grandfather talking to me was him telling me that I'm the man of the house, which is
Mm-hmm.
like, I think I was 7. Like, I'm
Right.
nowhere near a man, dude. But
Right.
that's why you see a lot of Latinos wanting to work super early. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like as immigrants in general, like we're trying to get our workers permit at 12. Like, we're trying to
Mm-hmm.
work right away. Like, let's make money. And there's nothing more lonely than struggling with something by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like the financial situation, like you look, I've felt this so many times. Like you look at your bank account and you feel like less of a person.
Mm-hmm.
And then not only that, because of your conditioning, the way you were brought up and societal expectations, you don't say a word. You
Yeah.
don't say a word. And that's caused me to run my credit card debt through the roof
Mm-hmm.
because I'm like, oh, I can't be out and not buy a drink with my friends, or I
Right.
can't not, I want to give my girlfriend the world. I'm gonna
Yeah.
go to dinner and I'm gonna
Yeah.
pay for it, and it's just gonna go on the credit card, like all this stuff. And people might look at it like, oh, why would you do that? That's not financially responsible. Like, make
Mm-hmm.
responsible decisions. Our school systems do not prepare us for making responsible financial decisions. There is
Mm-hmm.
no sort of real money class in our high schools and our middle schools. I'm talking about, what you would consider low income neighborhoods. That's where I
Yeah.
came from. You don't get taught that. You don't get taught what like, I mean, I didn't know until I was already financially in debt, how to truly like make appropriate financial decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And credit doesn't affect you until you're trying to get an apartment.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then by that time, if you've had a credit card since you were 19 or whatever, you're not doing well.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah, you're touching on a couple different things. I think specifically speaking to the men, I think as well, right? Because our role that society tells we're supposed to be the provider, right? To your point, and I think, um, also for a young man, it's your ability to sort of give off the persona of having it all together, right? And so much of your self-worth, a lot of it comes from the car or the job or the apartment, right? So much of that, right? And we bear that burden, and everybody bears a different burden, but I think for young men specifically, so much of their value when it comes to the opposite sex comes from their ability to provide, right? And then when you're in a position where you're not able to live that life to provide, or to your point, you just start doing bad financial decisions as a means to give off the persona that you are living that lifestyle,
Mhm.
and in sort of it takes a toll on you both financially in the literal sense, mentally, because you're not living authentically at that point. And then again, in today's social media era, you're watching as everybody else seems to have all their shit together, and you're just the one who's struggling to do the
Mhm.
basic, thing like take your girl to dinner or go meet up with friends for drinks or, have nice clothing or whatever it might be. It's like that is, especially as a man, so incredibly isolating and deflating and just overall depressing, I feel.
Yeah, and not only that, that's like we're talking about, right, the personal problems that could cause to us. Now imagine your entire, not your entire, but a good part of your self-worth is dependent on your ability to provide, right? And your ability
Right.
to provide is part of your financial wellness, right? If your financial wellness is not good, but you are breaking your back every single day, right? As
Mm-hmm.
they say, to provide, and then still your partner is not happy.
Uh-huh.
Why? Because your sole purpose is to give money to the table.
Right.
But in a healthy relationship, there are many different things that need to be done. So like you're providing, but you're not sharing how you're doing. You're providing, but you're not prioritizing spending time with your partner. So now you come into the home with basically what I've felt and I've seen, an expectation to one, be left alone,
Yeah.
two, to just like be in peace, but then you've done nothing to sort of foster the relationship. Then the feedback comes in from your partner, and now you don't feel you don't feel seen. You don't feel
Mm,
appreciated. You're like, what you mean? Like I've been out all day and I've been working this job and this other job. So I come here and now you're talking about like we don't spend enough time together. Yeah, but that's true, right? Like
right.
too many like men have like a self-worth only wrapped around being a provider, and then they
Uh,
have problems in their relationship and they're like, I don't get it. I don't get why she has to get on me about this.
right.
It's part of being in a relationship. This is not, you're not her roommate. You know, you
Hmm.
guys aren't roommates. You guys aren't business partners. Like you're not like, oh, I'm going to provide the finance and you provide this. No, it's a collaboration. So I feel like a lot of men feel even more alone because of this, because they're like, well, I come home and I don't feel understood. I don't feel
Right.
understood that like my hard work, and then she's talking about the kids or she's talking about spending time, or that I don't share about
Hmm.
how I feel. And it's like those are very important things if you want to be in a relationship, but we are so tied up around the identification of being a provider. When a provider is all around, right? You provide,
Yeah.
you hold space for your partner to talk, to understand, you share, right? Many
Hmm.
different things, but yeah, that creates even more loneliness because sometimes I've come into situations where I'm like trying I'm trying to find things to make myself more victim, more separated, more
Uh,
alone, because I'm like, no, you guys don't understand my grind. You guys don't understand that like this is against me and this is against me, and now I come home and it's like this. So then you start to like sort of retreat into a corner. And
yeah.
that's why I feel like men like explode sometimes. You explode in anger because you've just been continuously kind of taking a step back into a corner. And then one
Right.
day she's like, yo, you freaking got bleach on my shirt, and you explode.
Right.
You fucking lose
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because I think in the short term, it's oftentimes easier to kind of self isolate a little bit and not share the emotions. But to your point, those emotions have to go somewhere, right? They need to release somewhere,
Mhm.
and the more you sort of go inward and don't share anything and sort of just cut yourself off from the world, eventually it's all going to build up, and unfortunately it's going to come out probably at the wrong time on the wrong person almost.
Yeah, and how do they know that you're struggling when all
Right.
you do is put on this macho face? I left
Yep.
at 6, I'm coming back. How you doing, baby? Everything's good. Everything's good.
Yep.
Don't worry. So now your partner is over there like, I'm trying to decipher whether they are okay. Like, is it about me? Is it about
Hmm.
work? But you don't say nothing. And then they are now anxious because they're trying to
Right.
guess how you are doing. They don't want it to affect any other part of the home. And now you're both kind of on tippy toes around each other.
Yep.
And that contributes to it. But like, how is someone supposed to appreciate how much you do when you don't talk about how it makes you feel? If you
Mm.
came home and you were like, yo, baby, like, damn, today was really tough. Like, and it wasn't because of like necessarily work. Like, I just was thinking about this. And then this happened with my boss. And I'm just like, ugh. And then she'll be like, oh, he's had a hard day. But we go
Yeah.
in and we expect someone to read us because we don't
Right.
talk. We don't talk. Like a lot of men in this country are talking about like how this country's getting soft. Everyone's going into mental health and going to therapy. No, they're not.
Right.
No, they're not. There's still, it's like 20% of people in the whole country are in
Mm.
therapy.
Mm.
Okay. And men is probably less than that. And
Right.
that 20% is usually in like big metropolises, right? Like big cities. So like there isn't this whole thing happening. Like the media tries to make it seem like it by
Sure.
using buzzwords, but there's still a lot of us that are not talking at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great point. I think the cool thing about what you guys are doing, you correct me if I'm wrong here, but it feels like what you're doing is sort of the entryway for people to sort of dip their toe and explore this whole thing that is mental health.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. I think we're trying to, again, we're trying to like redefine it for people,
Yeah.
because addressing your mental health is actually every single part of your life, right? It
Hmm.
affects your productivity, it affects the way you walk, it affects the way you rest. So just letting people know that there's different ways to address it so it becomes more of a priority,
Yeah.
because addressing your mental health is a lifestyle. Like you can't just that's the issue with some brands at the moment. Like you can't just sell the mental health product.
Right.
Like you can't just sell it like, hey, you know, put this, use this body wash and it'll make your depression go away. That's not the
Yeah.
way it functions. It's like an actual whole thing. How do you wake up? How do you eat?
Hmm.
Do you chew your food? Like shit like that.
Right.
Like, what are you watching? How does it make you feel? Like this is a lifestyle thing that you need to start to like begin to place importance on. So yes, we come in with the basic need. We come in with entertainment. We come with a different way, a culturally accurate way to associate with people. They feel like they're at home, and then we introduce this sort of way to view your mental health in less of a distant way. Like I
Hmm.
feel like therapy's like way over there for people. They're like, huh. One, you got to talk to a random person. Two, you may not be able to find someone that culturally resonates with you. Three, it's expensive. Four,
Yeah.
it's another time block in your week.
Yeah.
Like five, you either have to go or, travel, whatever it may be. So it feels so distant. So it feels like people can't do anything about it. But we remind them that there are many different things from yoga to meditating to comedy shows to music, but really showing them that community, getting us back to like interacting can
Mm.
really help too.
Yeah, I love that aspect of it, community, because I think so many of us sort of lack that, right? We lack the shared space where you come together and it's like-minded individuals. Especially I think in the way we grow up now, where people are living all over the place, right? We're not sort of as tied into living in the same place forever as previous generations. Where through gentrification or whatever it might be, there's just not that communal aspect of like, oh, this is a primarily Puerto Rican area or whatever. Like it just doesn't exist as much anymore.
Mhm.
And I think within that, diversity is obviously great, but you also don't have sort of those cultural ties of the comfortability of seeing somebody who looks like you, who understands you without even having to have that conversation almost.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we went to Mente had a booth at the first ever Corridos festival in Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
Corridos is like Mexican traditional music. And we had like a bodega, like a deli sort of setup where we were providing like basic needs. So we were giving
Yeah.
people shade, some water, a place to rest. And then we also had these cool shirts that we were giving away as part of our like, basic need. I mean, a cool merch tee isn't necessarily a basic need, but clothing could be considered
Sure.
a basic need. And
Sure.
once we made that exchange and talked to them about us being like representing mental health and wanting to talk about it, people opened up.
Mm-hmm.
People opened up right away because they saw a familiar place like a tienda. Everyone
Mm-hmm.
understands what a little market is.
Yeah.
And they got something nice and they felt cared for. And then they saw faces that they could relate to. They were like, oh, these are my people. I'm going to talk
Yeah.
about it. And just like you said, like there's a lot of us that don't see ourselves. I mean, the therapy world has been made to look very white. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's been made to look white and affluent. So
Mm-hmm.
Latinos, we already have a problem believing that we belong in those spaces, right? We have
Right.
we have sort of what's that called? Imposter syndrome already.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I'm sure you've heard this, but like there are many Latinos that consider addressing your mental health as a gringada. Like that's
Right.
what gringos do. And
Yeah.
it's like, well, I'm a gringo. They're like I was born
Yeah.
here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but being around other people that are willing to talk about their mental health, that are part of your culture, that are part of your city, just learning
Mm-hmm.
that other people from your block, it makes you feel less alone. And
Yeah.
you're like, oh, like there's a lot of value in being around my community, sharing, and then understanding that the same problem you got, the homie has down the block, your
Right.
girl has in the different neighborhood. How are you doing it? I mean, I never got financial literacy classes. And then one time, one of my friends from college, he was a finance major, and I was just like, yo, bro, he like posted some video about like financial tips. And I hit him up and I was like, yo, bro, I need help, man. Like I'm down to here. And we sat down with my debt and he was like, all right, let's make a plan. This is how much you just saved. This is how much he was like, cut up that credit card right now.
Yeah.
Uh, and he helped me. But if I never reached out, I think I would have just like, I don't know, I think I would have. What's that thing where you can cancel it and your credit goes down to like negative 3 million, and then you're like, all right,
Right.
because
Yeah.
it was not cute.
Yeah. But it took having the conversation even there, right? Like that's the other thing
Yeah,
is allowing yourself to ask for help, right? And as much as that like our ego tries to tell us not to do that, right? And to push back against that, um, you know, there's no shame in asking for help, and in fact, you would have been in an even worse position had you not have asked for help, right? Had you have listened to your ego at that point and not taken the time to ask somebody who knew a piece of information that you didn't know, you know. And I think that is also where we get so caught up, even kind of in a lot of what we're talking about, is our ego takes over, and we sort of to avoid the short term sting to our ego, we put ourselves in an even worse position in the long run.
yeah. And there's just been this glorification of the doing it all yourself.
Right.
Oh, the lone wolf,
Yeah.
the YouTube viral video about the one guy that started an empire by himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you want to make millions on selling real estate? Well, this is the
Right.
way you
Right.
do, like do it yourself, be an entrepreneur. And it really distracts you from the power of community, from the power
Yeah.
of asking help, because you can feel you're not supposed to feel that alone. Like I know a
Yeah.
lot of people say like, the journey to the top is a lonely one. Now, like I won't completely disagree with that, but there's a level of loneliness that just comes with the territory, and there's another level, a bigger percentage of loneliness that you sort of put on yourself
Mm.
because you don't want to ask for help. You want to do it all yourself. I mean, it dates back to before we had map applications like Google
Yeah.
Maps. Men would get lost
Right.
different because they didn't want to ask for directions. They didn't want to ask
Right.
for help. I've been on a
Yeah.
bus with my grandfather and we've ended up where were we? We ended up in northern Westchester, like by Fishkill, because he didn't want to ask where our stop was. He was like, "No, I can't remember. I can't remember." And I'm a kid. I'm like, "All right, my grandfather knows."
Right.
It's like a lot of us don't ask for help because we were sort of trained that like the grind and success is a lonely one. And I feel
Yeah.
like women inherently have a little bit more community as far as like help a woman out
Sure.
because they are, more oppressed than men.
Yeah.
But in general, just in America, we're all trying to do it ourselves and asking for help. One makes you feel less alone, and two might get you the help that you actually need.
Right. Right. No, that's a fact. And I'm curious too with talking about Mente and all the work that you're doing. What has been kind of maybe some of the more common issues or common stories you've heard, from the community that seems to sort of be over and over again the shared struggle that many of us face.
Well, um, I would say there's a common story about a tough masculine figure in their life.
Uh,
Like I would say Latinos, I think we can all relate to having a parent, whether it's your dad or mom, that was very strict,
mhm,
right? So that creates sort of expectations and effects on your mental health, on what you see as success, whether you're able to acknowledge yourself, whether you are searching for that struggle, identification with, low self-worth. Um, and there's a lot of economic stuff. Like
yeah.
there's been a lot of stories about how, it's tough for them to even think about their mental health because they have two jobs or they need to
Mhm,
worry about their bills first, providing first. Um, but like on the positive note, with the younger crowd and sometimes like older millennials, there's been a lot of enthusiasm. Like there's
mm,
been a lot of enthusiasm around seeing people talk about like a brand like Mente being there and being like, actually, we don't want to sell you anything. We just want to talk about like what are you going through? Like, oh, we have this event here, we have this event there that you can go to. And there's a lot of excitement around sharing that they are at least going through something.
mm,
Another thing that I've seen is the older generations. it seems like now they're starting to see that like this is not going to go away, like
Mm,
this sort of mental health talk. So they're starting to look at it, whether it's like slightly glancing at it, but like they're like, oh yeah, we understand that mental health is an issue right now and that it's really affecting young people,
mm,
right? Um, and that's sometimes a little weird for me to hear because I'm like, I know it's affecting you.
yeah.
But just because young people talk about it, they're like, oh yeah, it's really affecting my kid
Mm,
because another common thing that you see a lot is because of social media and because of the internet, a lot of these kids are educated on therapy speak.
mm,
So they know how to label certain things, but they're still too young to like like, I had, I got a bad grade on my test. Mom, I'm depressed.
mm,
Like those are huge words
yeah.
that conflict with generations. And we've had a good handful of parents being like I want, I would love to see like content around how to parent my kid who knows how to use therapy speak because we had this one black mother. She was talking about how she was disciplining her kid because she's like snuck out, um and that in the fight the kid was like, you're traumatizing me.
Mm,
And as a parent, like, if you are at least attuned to humanity, right? I know many parents that'd be like, "Oh, I'm traumatizing you. Oh, I'm gonna show you what trauma
right,
is like."
right, right.
Yeah, te voy a dar un cocazo. Like, and
Yeah,
but she was like, I had to stop because she didn't know how to counter that. She was like, "Wait, whoa, like that's a big word." Like,
right,
so we've seen a lot of that. Like, a lot of young kids know the verbiage and they use it. It might not be totally accurate all the time. So, like, how do you navigate that as an older generation, not trying to like, stifle them or make them feel like you don't validate them, but also like, I'm not traumatizing you because I'm disciplining you for sneaking out. You know what I mean?
right.
So those are some of the common things that we've heard.
Yeah, no, I think even words like depression
Mhm.
are can be incredibly I feel like the previous generation when they hear a word like depression, they automatically link it to something like being suicidal almost, you know what I mean? And it makes it feel, this lack of understanding of depression and the various levels of it that there are.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people struggle with that, and it almost makes you not want to share it because you automatically think if I tell somebody I'm depressed, they think I'm trying to harm myself, and I'm not at that point. I'm just feeling depressed. I think that is an interesting point that there needs to be a far more education on the verbiage, and also I think the scale of depression, right? Like the clinical scale of it is not just doesn't mean just one thing. It doesn't automatically go to the most extreme version of it. There are varying levels of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, we just need to get more. We're in such a buzzword era.
Yeah,
And to truly, especially when it comes to mental health and many different topics, right? Things are complex. So
yeah,
we need to stop labeling things with such generality.
mm,
Like if you've been clinically diagnosed by a professional that you have depression, I think that's fine to then say that you are depressed.
right,
But maybe if you're not, I'm not saying that you're not depressed. I'm saying
sure,
use words to describe how you feel. Like
mm,
like a lot of men will say they're depressed, but back again, our bank accounts are low.
right,
So like, so let's talk about it. Why every day do you feel this weight? Well, I'm working. Okay, let's keep going. Let's keep talking about it. Well, you know what? At the end of the day, I always open up my Chase app and it's low, man. Okay,
yeah,
all right. So now we've gotten down to a kernel of where you associate your own self-worth. Your
mm,
self-worth is tied to money. Okay, now we need to work on that. Like, where the fuck did that come from? Who
yeah,
set that standard? Now, in what way can we acknowledge and have you believe that you are worth and enough, you're worth a lot and enough, regardless of your bank account, because
yeah,
you're a human being, because you're kind, because you're doing like, so like it's just about getting more specific. And you need to be in community for that specificity. Now, community, whether that's your family or
mm,
community, whether that's like at a function, like a Mente function or anything that you may be at, to sort of feel heard in that and be specific. Like you'll never, I swear, like sometimes you'll share something like that vulnerable. You may not get the guidance that you need from the person or from the entity that you're sharing with, but then you'll walk around and and there'll be a sign, like a sign from the universe, like, oh, check this out for financial da, da, da. And you're like, oh, okay, you know what, I'm actually going to go on that website. Or,
Yeah.
I mean, our phones are listening to us all the time. So like you
Sure.
you speak something into your phone and then you have a financial literacy class that comes up.
Right.
And it goes back to the help thing. You need to admit that you need help. Like I think it's one of the reasons why a lot of our parents and grandparents never learned the language is because this distaste that we have for vulnerability, right?
Mm.
To learn a new language is to literally go back to being a baby.
Right.
You have to learn sounds. You have to be vulnerable. You're weak. You don't know how to walk yet in this language.
Yeah.
And especially like, I mean, my grandfather never learned English, even though he said he knew English.
Right.
But he never wanted to learn how to pronounce. He never wanted to be in that sort of state of kid-likeness.
Yeah.
And that's what that vulnerability brings you down to. So like, don't be afraid of feeling weak in front of somebody because you have to describe exactly what's going on with you.
Mm.
What, okay, you're depressed. What's going on though? What is it? Because if you describe how for months and months and months, you seem to have good moments, but then you dive, and then good moments, and then you die. Maybe you do have chronic depression. But if your self-worth is strictly tied to such a low balance in your account, now we're talking about more of a self-worth issue. Okay, now we can talk about this. Now we can relate. Hey, oh, I actually the homie Luis has a self-worth issue and he's actually working through it. Maybe I should link you two up. But we're too general when describing
Right.
things that are so specific.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great kind of point to, and also I think it makes it easier to address what's going on when you're not trying to just blanket statement everything, you know.
Mhm.
And I think maybe it also would allow people to be a little bit more open to trying to figure things out, you know, because they don't want to. I think there's the terminology feels very heavy oftentimes, right?
Yeah.
And I think that pushes people away a bit to your point. Um, but anything that we should know about Mente World before we wrap up? You want to kind of let people know about?
Well, if you are in the LA area, we're running some really fun comedy shows that you can see through our profile, mented.world at Instagram, or my profile at Inca Papi, which is I'm Peruvian.
Yeah.
So we have that too. We have a show coming up in Miami on the 17th, which is another mental health benefit show. I would say look out for more content. Just keeping an eye on if you want to go to an event with like-minded people where you feel like you may not be ready to share, but you're ready to be in an environment where people are sharing and community is supporting instead of
Mm.
criticizing. Come by, come by. And bigger things are coming with Mente, but the more you guys support our events, the more we can prove to people, investors, that this sort of stuff matters and we care about this stuff and we want more of these things. So I would just say support and find community wherever you guys are.
I love that, bro. I listen. I love the work that you're doing and the work that Memphis is doing. I think it's really important. So salute to you guys for doing this work.
Of course. Salute to you too, brother.
Thank you, my friend. Man, big shout out to my guest this week, Luis Galilei, for hopping on the show. Really enjoyed that conversation. Hope you guys got a lot out of it. Made me think about a lot of things. We'll talk about it in our conclusion, Stu.
Time for conclusion, Stu.
So overall, great conversation, I think, with Luis, and it felt good to sort of have this topic of conversation around finances and mental health. Specifically, I just don't think we talk about it enough. I know we talk about the financial literacy aspects of things, and there's so much that goes into that, but I think there's a lack of conversation with the toll that finances can take on our mental health. And I also thought I guess for me, the biggest takeaway as I really think about it was a lot of the conversation around self-worth when it comes to finances, and, wanting to, I don't know, I guess as a man, wanting to be that provider. I know for me, I think growing up and in my 20s and early 30s when my finances were not in a good place, sort of feeling lesser than, it definitely affected my confidence and how I presented myself to the world, And I think, I wish I had people like Luis, that I could have talked to sort of understand some of those feelings about myself and to not let it seep into how I felt about myself, And I think just in general, when we talk about the idea of community, that stuck out to me so much, right? Having a group of like-minded people that you can have these deeper conversations with, right? A place to go and do that. And I think also even just the topic of conversation around like therapy and things like therapy almost being viewed as a privilege, right? And I know for me, there's been many times when I was younger where I had to stop doing therapy because I couldn't afford it anymore, or whatever the case may be. And it's like, the fact that there are programs and brands like Mente who are out there building spaces that are providing resources for people to address their mental health without maybe some of the stigma or the financial burden of something like therapy, I think is incredible. So big shout to Luis and big shout to Mente World. Go check them out on social media. They're doing incredible work. So great way to kick off Financial Literacy Month, tackling finances from a angle that I think is not spoken about enough, and that is sort of the mental health aspect of it all. With that said, I'm going to take my ass back to bed and try to sleep off the rest of this nasty ass cold that I've been fighting. So I'm good for Thursday, and that's when I'll catch y'all for our Thursday Trends episode. Till then, to stay safe, and we'll talk soon. Peace.